Hi, welcome to week 4 of Pilates with Vicky. Hope you're all well. So we're just going to come stand feet nice and close together, up nice and tall. Going to go toes out, heels out. So you've just got a nice stable foundation, your feet hip width apart, and lengthening up nice and tall through the legs. And from there, I'm just going to get you to gently rock forward, weight onto the toes, and then rock backwards, weight onto the heels, and just gently finding that equal pressure between forefoot and hind foot. So gently taking weight one way and the other. Feel that weight transferring through the foot as you come forward and backwards. Good. You come to that midpoint where you've got equal pressure through the forefoot, through the hind foot, and then just gently swaying the breeze side to side. Taking weight through the left leg and the right leg. Good. And then we're going to come back to that central point where you've got equal weight through both sides. Nice soft knees, lengthening up through the legs, and just imagine that pelvis like a big bowl, marble at the bottom. We're just going to gently roll that marble forwards and backwards, arching and hollowing through the lower back. So you lengthen down through the back, pull up through the front, and the other way, rocking through the pelvis. Good. Come to that midpoint where that marble's nice at the bottom of that bowl. You're lengthening through the back, pulling up gently through the front, lengthening through the spine and lengthening through the back of the neck. Make sure your chin's not pointing up towards the ceiling or not looking down towards the floor, but nice and long through the back of the neck. And just loosen off through those shoulders. Good. And then come back the other way, loosening off any tension through the shoulders. Good. And then loosen off. And then lift the shoulders up towards your ears, glide the shoulder blades back, lengthening through the collarbones, and then relax your shoulders away from your ears. So you're nice and long through the neck, relax and open through the front of the chest. Knees stay soft, pelvis stays neutral. And from here, we're just going to come into a squat to begin with. So I'm going to take a breath in. As you breathe out, you're going to gently pull it up through the pelvic floor, in through the belly button to engage the core muscles. Breath in. As you breathe out, we're going to come into a squat. Bending through the knees, make sure your knees are in line with your toes, and then coming up tall again. So as you breathe out, bring your arms forward to counterbalance you. And just try and keep your body, your knees over your feet as much as you can. So sitting back as though there's a chair behind you. And you're just going to touch your bottom to the chair, squeeze through the bottom, come up tall. So it's easier to come down forward and take the weight through the knees, but actually we want you to take your weight backwards, squeeze and come up nice and tall. And keep that nice length through the lower spine. Squeeze through the bottom and come up. Good. And then if you're happy to, or if you need to hold on for a little bit of balance, you're going to bend down, stand up tall, and then I want you to think about lengthening through the crown of your head, up onto your toes, foot flat, into the squat, lengthen, come up tall, lower, and squat. Coming up tall, then up rather than forward, down, sit back into that chair. Squeeze through the bottom, lengthen up, lower down, squat back. Good. Keep those core muscles switched on. Sitting back into the chair, come up tall, lengthen, lower, squat back. Good. Keep breathing. Let's do 2 more. Squatting down, squeeze the bottom, come up tall, lengthen, come down. 1 more. Squeeze, lengthen, and lower. Good, well done. Okay, and then from there, we're just going to heel toe those feet out, toes pointing out to the side. And then from there, we're going to come into a wide squat. So toes pointing out, Make sure you're still up nice and tall through the spine, through the back of the neck, those shoulders stay down, that pelvis stays neutral. So make sure you're not arching through the lower back, you lengthen down through the back, and we're going to engage through the core muscles. So breath in as you breathe out, pull up through the pelvic floor, in through the belly button. Breath in, as you breathe out, we're going to squat down, knees come out wide. So as you look down, you should see the inside edge of your feet, and then coming back up. So stay nice and tall, so pelvis and shoulders stacked, or shoulders stacked above the pelvis, coming down. And as you're coming into that wide squat, just staying in line. Making sure you're not sticking your bottom out, leaning forward. Keep the knees out wide. Just check, see where your knees are going, make sure they're staying out wide over those toes and they don't want to come in. So you've got weight through the outside of the foot. Let's do 2 more. Good, well done. Okay, and then from there, maybe pop your hands onto your waist. So you're going to keep the waist and everything up really nice and still. Keeping the core muscles engaged, pulling up through the pelvic floor and through the belly button. You're going to come down into that wide squat. And from there, just going to lift your right heel and then lower down. Lift the left heel and then lower down. So controlling through. So your knees stay out over your toes. So as you look down, you should see the inside edge of your foot, lifting one side and lowering down. Staying up nice and tall. Make sure you don't want to end up leaning forward. So keep the shoulders stacked above the pelvis. Good. Breathing out, breathing in. Good. And you can either stay doing one leg and then the other, or if you want to, we're going to lift right leg, lower left, lower right. Lift left, right, lower right, lower left. Good. Lift right, left, lower left, lower right. Lost the balance a bit there. Left, right, lower right, lower left. Good. Right, left, lower left, and right. Good. Left, right, lower right. One more, leading with either heel. Left, lower left, lower right. Last one, make it good. Good, well done. Lower right and left. And then come up, relax off through the legs. Heel toe, those feet back in towards you. Good. And loosen off through the legs. It's hard work through the quads, that one. So we're going to practice a little bit of balance. So if you need to hold on, just have something to hold on to, you can do. We're going to bring the feet really nice and close together. Coming up nice and tall through the spine, lengthening through the tailbone, pulling up through the tummy, lengthening all the way through the spine, through the back of the neck, shoulders up, back, and down. And then from there, engaging through those core muscles by pulling up through the pelvic floor, in through the belly button. And maybe pop your hands on your hips to make sure that your pelvis is really nice and still. Soft knee on the left leg. We're just going to peel that right heel up. And if you need to, if this is challenging your balance enough, just with the right toes onto the floor, you can just balance there. Or you can hold onto a chair if you need to. If you're happy to, we're just going to try and bring that leg, that right foot up off the floor. I'm going to try and keep that pelvis really nice and still, so it's easy to kind of drop or hitch, but we're going to try and keep that nice length through the leg all the way through the spine. Keep the knee just gently soft on the left, so make sure you don't lock it out, so you're using the muscles to balance you. And just thinking about having that equal weight through toes and through heel. If you've got weight through one more than the other, then you'll work the muscles through the legs slightly differently, so just trying to get that equal pressure through the both. Keeping the core switched on, thinking about lengthening through the spine, lengthening through the crown of the head. I'm going to see if we can hold it just for a little bit longer. Keep those core muscles engaged, they'll help you balance. That lengthening through. Imagine you've got a helium balloon attached and floating you up long. Good, well done. And then gently with control, lower the toes down and then controlling that foot back down. Good, well done. Coming up nice and tall again, pelvis nice and neutral, lengthening through the spine. Imagine that healing balloon lengthening you up. Soft knee on the right. We're going to peel the left heel up off of the floor. And if you want to just keep the toes in contact, then just keep the toes in contact. If you're happy to come up further to that single leg balance, think about lengthening through this leg. Make sure you're not sinking down into it or hitching up the other side. Really think about lengthening through the spine, all the way through that helium balloon, lengthening you up. Core muscles switched on, keep breathing. Soft knee on the right, and just make sure that that pressure through toes and heels is as equal as you can make it. Good, holding it there. Keep the shoulders relaxed. Length through the spine, pelvis nice and neutral. Good. Hold it there for a bit longer. Keep that nice form, so lengthening through the spine, pelvis nice and neutral. Think about length all the way through. Good. And then gently lowering that leg down and coming back onto equal sides. Good, well done. Okay, so we're going to come into a roll down, and I'm going to give you an option. So you can either bring your feet hip width apart, or if you just want to work through the iliotibial band and the hamstring a little bit more on each side, then we're going to stand on the right leg and cross your left leg in front. Now, if you find that this balance on this is just too much, then just come back into feet hip width apart, and we'll do a roll down with your feet hip width apart. If you're happy to, take your left leg in front of your right, coming up nice and tall through the spine, pelvis nice and neutral, core switched on, splitting up through the pelvic floor, in through the belly button. And we're going to roll down from chin to chest. Keep breathing, rolling one vertebra at a time down through the spine. So you have breath going deep into the rib cage, let the shoulders roll forward over the rib cage. Try and keep that pelvis neutral for as long as possible. Rolling through the spine. Good. Standing on that back leg, the left knee just slightly soft. And as you stack up, coming pelvis first, really mindfully thinking about the spine, stacking up one vertebra at a time. Good. And again, so left knee soft, if that's your leg that's in front, right knee just not locked out, but nice and long. A big stretch, and I'll get into the right iliotibial band on the outside as well as the hamstring, and then stacking up pelvis first. Let's do one more with the left leg forward, right leg behind. Really trying to visualize that spine moving one vertebra at a time. And stacking up. Good. And if you've got your legs crossed, then just uncross the legs. Standing on the left leg, cross the right leg in front. You might feel different side to side, and that's fine. We all have kind of one leg that's just slightly more dominant than the other, and it just works slightly differently. So go with what you feel is comfortable. If you want to carry on with your feet hip width apart, then that's absolutely fine. And come up nice and tall, pelvis neutral, lengthen through the spine, core switched on, pulling up through the pelvic floor, in through the belly button. I'm going to drop chin to chest and rolling down through the spine. Keep the pelvis up tall for as long as possible. And then rolling forward through the pelvis and stacking up pelvis first. Good. Do two more in that position. Keep visualizing that spine as it stacks back through, lengthening all the way through. One more. Good, well done. When you're ready, uncross the legs and we're going to come down onto the mat. So in your own time, and once you're onto the mat, you're just going to make sure that your feet are in line with your knees, hips and your shoulders as you come back onto your back. Nice and long through the back of the neck, so make sure that chin's not lifting up towards the ceiling, or likewise you're not touching down to chest, but you're lengthening through the back. You should just have enough room to fit an orange in between your chin and your chest. And then lengthening through the neck by dropping those shoulder blades down away from your ears, snuggling them under the ribcage gently. Just lift your bottom up and lower the spine down onto the mat. I'm going to come into that nice neutral spine position. So I want you to imagine that directly underneath your belly button, in between your spine and the mat, you've got a marshmallow. And directly underneath your breastbone, between spine and mat, you've got a 2p coin. I just want you to squash down onto them. So you're really shortening through the tummy, pushing your back down onto that marshmallow, that 2p coin. And then we're going to lift the other way. So keep the bottom in contact, but you should just be able to tuck your fingers underneath that lower back and arch through the lower back. Squashing down onto that marshmallow, that 2p coin. And then lifting up and away, lengthening through the front, shortening and working through the back muscles. And then we're going to kind of come down and bring that belly button down. So you're squashing at least halfway onto that marshmallow, maybe a little bit more if you know you tend to arch through that lower back. And make sure that that spine is in contact with that 2p coin. So you're not lifting through the rib cage, you're just keeping that tucked down towards the mat. And just take a mental note of what you feel of your pressure onto the mat. And we're going to try and keep that pressure the same as we work through the exercises. So we're going to come into hundreds to start with. And if you're comfortable too, we'll add a little head lift in as well. So we just work through the upper abdominals. If that's uncomfortable on your neck, then you can relax down and bring your head back down onto the mat. So work with something that you're comfortable with, but you feel like you're just working through those tummy muscles. So breath in. As you breathe out, we're going to pull up through the pelvic floor, down through the belly button. I'm going to take a breath in. As you breathe out, we're going to float one leg to tabletop. Good. Breath in. As you breathe out, we're going to float the other leg to join it. Keeping that same pressure, you're back onto the mat. So if you're comfortable too, we're going to add a little abdominal lift. So we're going to shorten rib cage to pelvis so that your head and just the top of your shoulders lift off the mat. You're going to keep that neck nice and long. So make sure you're not pulling up chin to chest. Keep the orange in between chin and chest. We're going to float the hands just off the mat and gently pulse the arms there. We're going to hold that position, keeping that pressure down onto that marshmallow, that 2p coin. Good, neck nice and long. And you can either hold this position if you want to come into extending one leg away, just loading through the spine a little bit more. You can hold it there. Good, 2 more breaths. And on that last out breath, we're going to float back in, breath in to pause, breathe out, lengthen the other leg away. If your neck's sore, then just relax your head and shoulders back down onto the mat. If you're happy to lift up, then holding there. 1 more breath in as you breathe out, float back to tabletop and do 1 more leg extension. Breathing out, keep that same pressure of your back down. Should be feeling through the tummy working. Good. 1 more breath in as you breathe out, float that leg back. Breath in as you breathe out, lengthen through that second leg. Good. One more breath in as you breathe out, float back to tabletop. Good. Relax your head and shoulders down onto the mat. And just lower one foot to the floor, bring the other one down to join it. And then we're just going to lengthen through the arms, lengthen through the legs, have a big stretch through. Good, well done. And just shake your head side to side, loosen off through the neck. Good. And gently bring your arms back down by your side. You're going to bend one leg up, your foot's in line with your hip. Same on the other side. Drop those shoulders down, lengthen through the neck. And just, if you need to lift and lower through the pelvis, come back down onto that marshmallow, that 2 pence coin, so that same pressure of your back onto the mat. I'm going to come into scissors. So breath in, as you breathe out, we're going to engage through those core muscles, pulling up through the pelvic floor, down through the belly button. Breath in, as you breathe out, float one leg to tabletop. Breath in, as you breathe out, bring the other leg to join in. And from here, we're going to take a breath in, as you breathe out, tap one foot to touch the floor. Breathe out, come back to this tabletop. Breathe out, tap the other leg down. In as you come back up. So you can either carry on just one leg at a time, keeping that same pressure down onto that marshmallow. If you want to, breathe out as you tap down, breathe in as you swap. So it just increases the load slightly, makes you work slightly harder. But if you start to feel like you're lifting off of that marshmallow, then just do one leg at a time. Breathing out, breathing in. Good. You can either have your arms by your side. If you want to make it just slightly harder so you're not using your arms to stabilize, and bring them across your chest. Keep that same pressure down onto the mat. Make sure you're not lifting away from that marshmallow, that 2 pence coin. Good. Let's do 2 more on either side. And 1, good, well done. And then hug those knees in towards your chest. Nice and close, and lengthen through the arms. Hugging in, lengthening away. Good. And then pop your hands onto your knees, just a big circle of those knees over your chest. Good. And then I'm going to go back in the other direction. Good. And then hug knees to chest for one more time. And then gently lower one foot to the floor and bring the other one down to join it. So the next exercise we're going to do is hip twist. And you can either do that with your feet on the floor, feet and knees together. And from here we can roll the knees to one side. So we can either do it so you can keep your feet on the floor. If you're happy to, we can come up into tabletop. So just make sure the neck's nice and long, shoulders down. Come down onto that marshmallow, that 2 pence coin. Going to take a breath in. As you breathe out, we're going to engage through those core muscles. And then breath in. As you breathe out, float one leg to tabletop. Breath in. As you breathe out, bring the other leg to join it. And both arms straight up towards the ceiling. And then from here, we're going to keep the pelvis nice and neutral. So making sure you're not arching through the lower back, but we will roll side to side with the spine. So we're going to bring our arms out wide. We're going to take both knees across to one side, but enough so that you can keep them there as you bring your arms up, keep the shoulders on the floor, and then bring the knees to the center. So breathing in as you move your arms, out as you take the knees to the side, in as you bring the arms up to the center, out as you come back to the center. So breathing in, knees across to one side, keep the shoulders flat, knees there as you bring the arms up, and then bring the knees up. In as you move the arms, out as you move the knees, in, good, and out. In, and out, good, in, and out. So we're using those oblique tummy muscles to control that rotation, especially as your arms come up towards the center and you're holding that position. You're using those tummy muscles to stabilize you, trying to keep the shoulders flat. Good. And just make sure you keep the shoulders away from your ears and you keep the collarbones wide. Let's do 2 more on either side. Make sure you're not arching through the lower back. Rolling to the side, but keeping that pelvis nice and neutral. Last one on either side. Good, well done. And then from there, just gently lower one leg down and the other. Bring your arms back down by your side. Just have a big lengthen through arms and legs. Good. As you breathe in, reach the fingertips and toes away from one another. Try to lift away from that marshmallow, that 2p coin. And as you breathe out, relax the arms and legs and flatten the back down to that marshmallow, that 2p coin. Breathing in, lengthening through, lift away from the mat. Breathing out, relax the arms and legs, lengthen that spine down onto the mat. Good. One more time, big breath in. In, out. Good. Bring your arms back down by your side. Bend one leg up and then bring the other up to join it. So we're going to bring the feet relatively close to your bottom, so as close as you're comfortable going to your knees to bottom. Make sure the back of the neck's nice and long, shoulders down, and just coming down into that nice neutral position onto that marshmallow, that 2p coin. We're going to come into shoulder bridge, so we're going to really peel the spine up one vertebra at a time. I want you to really be mindful, visualise the spine as you're peeling up through the spine and peeling back down again. So arms on the mat. We're going to take a breath in. As you breathe out, we're going to gently engage through the core muscles, pulling up through the pelvic floor, down through the belly button. Breath in. As you breathe out, we're going to flatten the back down onto the mat. Lifting through that coccyx, sacrum, and then peeling one vertebra at a time. Shortening through the tummy muscles, squeezing through the bottom, and peeling up. Making sure you're not arching through the lower back as you peel up. So we're peeling up, but keeping that length and keeping the bottom working, keeping a little bit of integrity through those tummy muscles. As you lower, squash down onto that 2p coin, and then shorten through the tummy muscles, squeeze through the bottom, and really feel one vertebra at a time as you peel back down. I want you to imagine your spine, each vertebra in your spine is like a pearl on a string of pearls, and you're going to really shorten through the tummy muscles to lift up that first pearl through the coccyx, sacrum, and then one pearl at a time, peeling up and lifting through. From there, shorten down through the tummy muscles, lower that breastbone down to the mat, and then I want you to feel one vertebra at a time, coming down onto the mat. Good. And again, flattening down and peel up. Visualize that spine, one vertebra at a time. And if you feel you've got good movement through the spine, then bring your arms across your chest again. Just makes it slightly harder, takes a little bit of that support coming from your arms away, and you really have to work through those stability muscles through the spine. Good, and again. Okay, so this time I'm going to peel up through the spine. So peeling up, coming into that nice long spine. A little bit of integrity through those tummy muscles, working through those bottom muscles to keep that nice long spine. And then bring your hands onto your hips. So you should just feel the hips. I want them to feel level side to side. We're going to hold that position. And then from there, you're just going to lift your left heel up. You can either just lift the left heel and hold it there, if you're happy to. You can lengthen the leg away, keep the hips up nice and level, lower that toe down, and then lower the heel down. We're going to go same on the other side. Keep the hips nice and level, lift the right heel, and then lengthen through. Good. We're bending that knee back down onto the toes and onto the heel. Keep the hips level, keep the core working, tummy and bottom squeezing to lift, keep you lifted, lifting the left heel and lengthen. Lowering the toes, lowering the heel. Keep that pelvis up nice and tall. Lift the right heel, lengthen, toes down, heel down. Let's do one more on either side. Lift the left heel, and lengthen through, toes down, heel down. Last one on the right, lifting the heel, lengthen, lower the toes down, heels down, and then peel that spine down onto the mat. Good, nice, well done. Bring your arms out wide. Feet and knees stay together as you roll your knees one direction and look across to the other direction and open up through the upper side of the spine. Try and take that top hip away from the shoulder, really opening up through the waist. And then just breathe there. One more breath in there, and then gently bring the knees back through to the center. Keep the arms wide, roll the knees across to the other side. Look away from your knees, just opening up through the upper side of the body. Take your hip away from your shoulder. Good, well done. Just take one more breath in there. Good, well done. And then from there, we're going to roll onto our side. And if you shuffle just back, so you're near the back of the mat, and we're going to bend the hips to 90 degrees so that your knees and shins are in line with the front edge of the mat. So you should have 90 degrees at your hip, 90 degrees at your knee. And from there, I'm going to make sure that that spine's really nice and long. So either have your arm out long, support your head, or if you've got a pillow, you can bring that pillow under as well. We're going to just make sure that the spine's nice and neutral. So you're not arching through the lower back, but likewise, you're not curled up into a big kind of curve through that spine. So nice and long through the spine. We're just going to make sure that we take the hip away from the ribs on that side. So we're really long through the spine. And that itself should just give you a little gap in between your waist and the mat. And then from there, we're going to take a breath in. As you breathe out, you can gently engage through the core muscles, pulling up through the pelvic floor, in through the belly button. And then from there, breath in. As you breathe out, you're just going to lift that top knee up. Foot stays in line with the knee. Breathe out, lower down. Breathe in, lift up. Breathe out, lower down. And you're going to keep everything from the pelvis up really nice and still. So if you feel like to lift that leg up, you want to twist back, just stop at the point where your hip lifts, but your back, you don't start to twist through the pelvis or the lower back. Breathing out as you lift and in as you lower. And you should feel it through the outside of the leg. If you don't, just make sure, just maybe lean forward to front towards the mat a little bit more, and that should just fire up through the outside of the hip a little bit more. Keeping that little gap between your waist and mat, so that hip away from the ribs on that upper side. Let's do two more. Good. And then relax down. Good. Just reset. So make sure that that hip's down away from the rib cage, shoulders are down, that little gap in between your waist and the mat. And from there, we're going to lift that top knee up. Take a breath in. As you breathe out, you're going to go knee to knee. As you breathe in, you're going to go foot to foot. You're twisting, and that really gets into those deep hip rotators. But it's hard work. You're not lifting the leg high, so you're not rotating back through the spine. You're just twisting through that hip. It's hard work, so just go with what you can manage. Breathing in and out. Good. Keep those core muscles switched on, that little gap. Good, let's do three more. 2 and 1. Good, well done. And relax down. And then we're going to lengthen that top leg all the way down. Have a little rub through that hip if you need to. Take your top arm up and over. Have a big stretch through. So reach those top toes, or the toes on that top leg, top arm up and open up through the upper side. You might have a big gap in between your waist and the mat. Big banana stretch through that side. Good. One more breath in there. Good. And then we'll gently roll onto the other side. So remember, just come back onto the back edge of the mat a little bit more so that you can bend your hips to 90 degrees and your knees to 90 degrees so that your shins and knees are in the front head, in line with the front edge of the mat. And from there, we're just going to make sure that your spine's nice and long so that you're not arched through that lower back. Likewise, you're not curled through the lower back. So nice and long through the spine. And just distance that top hip away from the ribs so you've got a little gap in between your waist and the mat. And just slide a ribbon or your fingertips. And from there, we're going to just make sure that the core muscles are switched on. You're going to take a breath in, and as you breathe out, you're going to lift that top leg up. Breathe in, come back down again, controlling through that outer hip. And just make sure again that as you lift up, you're not wanting to twist backwards and cheat and use your spine, but we're really going to use the outside of that hip to lift and lower. Make sure you keep that hip away from the rib cage, keeping that little gap in between your waist and the mat. Breathing out and in. Good. Just make sure you're not rolling backwards. 3, 2, and 1. Good, well done. And relax down for a moment. Good, just reset. So make sure you're not squashed down on that little gap. So we're lengthening through the spine, nice and neutral through the core, through the pelvis, and then the core switched on as you breathe out. Breath in. As you breathe out, we're going to lift that top leg up just a little way, and then we're going to go knee to knee, foot to foot. So twisting through that hip, but keeping everything from the pelvis up really nice and still. So make sure you've not squashed down and you're not losing control, but you're controlling all the way through, nice and smooth. It's a real burn on the outside of that hip. So go with it for as long as you can. Have a rest when you need to. Breathing out, breathing in. Good. Breathing out, breathing in. Okay, we're going to do 3 more. Good, well done. Last one. Well done. Lengthen that top leg down. Take your top arm up and over. Have a big stretch through the upper side of the body. Good. One more breath in there. Good, well done. And then we're gently going to come up onto all fours. So from here, we're just going to come into our swimming position. So we're going to come up onto hands and knees, nice and long through the spine. So just have a little arch and hollow through the spine by that midpoint, so we're nice and long through the spine. We're going to take a breath in. As you breathe out, we're going to engage through the core muscles, pulling up through the pelvic floor, belly button up towards the spine. We're going to try and keep that spine as still and long as possible, and the neck a nice long extension of the spine. We're going to take a breath in, and as you breathe out, we're going to lift opposite arm and leg out long, trying to keep that spine nice and long. Breathing in, coming back down. Breathing out, lengthen through the other side. So we're trying to keep that spine as long as possible, using the bottom muscles to lengthen through, but keeping the spine long. So make sure we're not arching through the lower spine. Keep lifted through the front. Coming back down. Good. Breathing out. Get that belly button lifted up towards the spine. And as you come back down, good. Breathing out. And as you come back down, good. Stay strong on your shoulders. So shoulders drop down away from your ears and push that chest away from the mat with your arms. Good. Keep that spine nice and long. Let's do 2 more on either side. Keep those shoulders down away from your ears, pushing that spine up away from the mat. Sorry, the breastbone and belly button up away from the mat towards the spine. The last one. Good, well done. And from there, just have a little sit back onto your heels and lengthen out through the arms and legs. And come back up onto all fours. And from here, we're just going to try a little heel lift towards the ceiling. So we're going to hold that nice long straight spine, shoulders down away from your ears, that nice long extension of the spine. We're going to pull up through the pelvic floor and in through the belly button. And we're going to just bring the leg up into 90 degrees. And from there, you're going to try and push the heel. So use the heel, not the toes, to push up and come back down again. Push up and come back down. Make sure you're not arching through the spine to do it. Try and keep the spine long and working through that bottom muscle. Squeeze the bottom, push the heel up, come back down. Okay, so nice and long through the spine, core switched on, coming into that 90-degree knee lift. Push and come back down. Keep that belly button lifted towards the spine, shoulders down away from the ears, pushing up, coming back down, pushing up, coming back down. Keep the spine nice and long. Don't arch through the lower back too much. Good. Let's do 3 more. 2 and 1. Good. Well done. Drop that knee back down. And then we're going to come on to the other side. So nice long spine, core switched on, shoulders down away from your ears. Push your breastbone away from the mat. 90-degree knee lift, heel towards the ceiling, and from there, keep that spine nice and neutral. Push up, control back down. Push up, control back down. Make sure you're not arching through that lower back. And really pull the belly button and breastbone up towards the spine. Heel up towards the ceiling, toes pull down towards your knee. Good, keep breathing. Three, 2, and 1. Good, well done. Again, just have a little sit back onto your heels, stretch out through the arms, have a lengthen through. And then gently coming up on to all fours, and then we're going to come into our mermaid sitting position. So from there, just bring both knees across. I'm going to go right side, but go with whatever you feel, kind of whichever position you're in. And then from there, we're just going to come up nice and tall through the spine. Bring your heel to your bottom on that right side. We're going to bring the knee back behind us. Really make sure you're lengthening through the spine. So tucking that tailbone down, pulling up through the front. You should already feel a bit of a stretch through the quads. I'm going to turn away from that side to really open up through the front of that quad and hips of the leg that you're pulling that heel to the bottom. So on my right side, you might be on the other side. Good. But make sure you're not arching through that lower back. Really lengthen down through the lower back, pull up through the front. Good. Keep breathing. And gently relax that leg off. Bring it back out to the side. And we're going to try and keep those sitting bones down towards the floor as much as you can. So this one of this outside leg will be lifting a little bit, but try and keep it heavy down towards the mat. You're going to take your left hand towards the floor, your right hand or the hand at the same side as the feet up towards the ceiling. Reach up, keep the sitting bones down and over. Just open up. So I'm opening up through that right side, that side you're moving away from. And try to take a big breath, kind of down into your ribs, so really opening up through the ribs. And as you breathe in, you should feel those ribs stretch out. Good, keeping that sitting bone down. I'm gently going to come back up and over. I'm going to bring the feet across to the other side. Good. Bring your heel to your bottom. Think about lengthening down through the back, pulling up through the front as you bring that heel back, turning away from that side and opening up through the front of the quads, front of the hip. Lengthen down through the back so you're not arching through that lower back. Feel the stretch to the front. One more breath in there. Good, well done. Relax that leg off. You're going to bring your your right hand to the mat. Reach your right fingertips. Your right hand to the mat. Move your left fingertips up towards the ceiling. Try and keep those sitting bones nice and heavy towards the mat. Reaching up and over. Good. Try and keep those sitting bones down. Opening up through that left side. And again, when you're breathing there, just try and think about breathing into the ribs. So really expanding through those lower ribs on that left side. Good. One more breath in there. Good, well done. And then reaching up and over. I'm going to bring the feet together out in front of you. So try and sit up nice and tall. And really think about lengthening through the spine. I want you to reach your fingertips up towards the ceiling. I'm going to reach up and forward towards the toes as far as you feel comfortable going, so you feel a stretch through the back of the legs. If you need a little bit of knee bend, then that's fine, but I want you to make sure you can feel it through the back of the legs as you lean forward. You might feel a bit through the back as well, so go with what you're comfortable with, but just working with your breath. So breath in, and as you breathe out, trying to relax into that stretch. Just hold it for one more breath. And then gently coming up nice and tall through the spine. We're going to bring the feet together in front of us. Coming up nice and tall. Allow the knees to just go heavy. You're opening up through the inner thighs. Good, well done. So from there, we're going to bring your right foot in towards your thigh, and then bring your left foot in front of it. I'm just going to shuffle back a bit. So right foot in front, and then left foot in front of that. So you're just lining them up through here, and it just opens up through the hips. And it might be that you come into this position, or you might just want to do one leg at a time. So coming into this position with both legs is a bit much through the hips, and just work with what you're most comfortable with. If you want to come into this position, then you can do. So right leg closest to left leg, then either out in front or in front of that right leg. You can come up nice and tall, pop your hands onto the floor. And just gently, again, with your breath in, and as you breathe out, gently walking those fingertips away, just as far as you feel comfortable to go. So you might just have fingertips onto the mat, and that's fine. Just work with your breath and try and relax into that right hip a little bit more. And if you're happy to, you can come down either onto your elbows, or if you want to come down further, just really relaxing, trying to relax into that position. Try and keep those sitting bones down onto the mat. So you're just really opening up through the hips, through the pelvis. And it doesn't matter if you're up here and just working in with that breath up in this position. It's still opening up through the hip, just loosening off through the pelvis and hips a little bit. Let's hold it for a couple more breaths. Good, well done. And then again, just working with your breath, gently coming up, back into that nice tall seating position. And then we're going to bring the left foot in. And again, you can either have the right foot out in front, or if you're happy, then bringing that right foot in front of the left. Coming up nice and tall. And this might feel really different one side to the other. So one hip might be nice and flexible and be easy breezy on one side, and the other one might just go, I really don't like that. So work with what you feel comfortable with, not what you think you should be doing because the other side is doing the same. So kind of go with what you're comfortable with. Up nice and tall, fingertips onto the floor. Just working with your breath, walking those fingertips away. And just stopping when you're starting to feel that that hip's got to a position where it's stretching but not uncomfortable, not painful. And if you're comfortable to come down onto elbows, or forehead down towards the hands or onto the floor. And keep breathing, keep working with what you're comfortable with. Try and keep those sitting bones nice and heavy down onto the mat. And hold for one more breath. And then gently with your breathing, gently coming back up. Nice and tall. And then go with whatever you're comfortable with in terms of where your legs are. So if you'd rather than being crossed, you'd rather take a seat onto a chair, then grab a seat onto a chair. If you want your legs to be out in front or hugged up, that's fine. We just want you to think about your breathing a little bit in this position. So we're going to come up really nice and tall. So sit tall on those sitting bones, whichever position you're in. Lengthen that spine up on top of the pelvis, through the back of the neck. And I just want you to place your hands onto your rib cage. So those lower ribs, I want you to place your thumb around the back, fingers around the front. Just think about feeling where those ribs are. And just gently breathe. And as you're breathing, just think about whether you're feeling, what you're feeling, if you're feeling anything underneath those hands. So some of you might feel like you're getting a little bit of movement underneath your hands. So as you breathe in, those fingertips spread apart, and as you breathe out, they come back together. Some of you might feel like they're completely stiff and they're just staying fairly still. And as you're breathing, you might be breathing up through the top. So you might be breathing up here and the fingers stay exactly where they were. Or some of you might be feeling like you're breathing down into the tummy. And again, your fingertips just stay in the same distance away from one another. So what I want you to feel, or try and feel, is where those fingertips are. And maybe if you want to, just have the fingertips touching in front of you, if you want to. I want you to take a breath in. As you breathe in, I want you to really think about expanding through those lower ribs. And as you breathe in, those fingertips move away from one another. And as you breathe out, the fingertips move back together. For some of you, that might be harder than for others, because a lot of us either breathe up here or down here and might not breathe through those lower ribs. So I just want you to think about breathing in and expanding the ribs, breathing out and allowing those fingertips to come together again. Maybe just pop your hands behind you as well. So if it's available to you, just popping your hands this way. And the same thing should happen, that as you breathe in, the fingertips move away from one another. And as you breathe out, they come back together. If you're feeling a bit lightheaded from taking deep breaths, stop and have a little rest and just relax your breathing. But I want you to go away and maybe try that, even if you're lying down in bed at night in the evening. Place your fingertips over your ribcage so the fingertips are just touching, and see if you can practice breathing in and that distance between the fingertips increasing. Breathing out and those fingertips coming back together. So it's really good for opening up through the lower lungs, allowing that diaphragm to open up, but also the rib cage to move and open up and allow the air to fill all of the base of the lungs as much as you can. And just even if you take 5 deep breaths in and then relax your breathing for a little bit and then have another little go, and thinking about the ribs at the back as well, opening up and relaxing back. Sometimes some of you might find it easier in lying than you do in sitting. So have a little practice for that, with that for me. And I shall see you again next week. Okay, well done. Bye.